going on, everybody, and welcome back. So in this one we're going to be working on the truck again. We're going to be doing the camshaft and valve springs. So I am pretty stoked about this. Ever since I was a little kid, I always wanted to have a chop and cam, just something that just was real rowdy, just chop chop chop. And you know, I always was worried that it was going to be undrivable, and that I can't drive it, I can't do this and that. But you know what? I'm sick of that. I'm sick of worrying about it, and I think I don't really care if I drive like a race car / truck. So I think it'll be fun to do. I don't tow with it. I hardly work with it. I just drive it to work and back, and occasionally an hour on the highway. So I really don't care that much. I have a vehicle between myself and my girlfriend. We can take long road trips in her vehicle. It's nice and reliable. It's new. So that's no big deal. So I think let's make this thing fun, just like everything else, and I want to have a good time. So we're gonna yank this thing all apart, and basically what we got to do for this job here is pull all the front drive accessories off. We can leave the power steering, thankfully, and the alternator can stay on, but we're gonna pull this, and we're gonna pull the water pump, and I guess the AC compressor can hang out. Maybe we'll just unbolt him and move him out of the way, and yeah, we should be able to pull the balancer off. I brought home a balancer crank pulley removal tool, and we'll pull the radiator as well as the fan shroud, and then we got to pull the front cover and the cam plate, and then we should have to do all the coils here, and these will all come off, all the coil packs, and we'll just probably let them hang. And the valve cover's got to come off for us to do the valve springs, and I got new valve cover gaskets too, and I'll probably clean up the valve covers while they're off. But yeah, I think my goal is to get it completely torn down tonight, and tomorrow I'll clean everything off and put it all back together for a nice clean looking motor, and should be pretty nice when we're all done. Nothing crazy, but just clean. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and get to work, pull this thing in the garage and get started on this, and I'll show you guys my process. I'm gonna get the dowels to shove in where the cam is, so we can make sure that all the lifters are pushed up in their trays, and make sure that we don't lose it, and that way we won't have to take the cylinder heads off. I'm sure you guys have heard of this trick, but we're going to demonstrate that here. A couple of 5/16 dowels. So anyway, I'm going to get started and pull this thing in the garage and start tearing it down. So I figured I'd do like a little intermission update here. You know, this is where we're at this point. So I've got the radiator out. I disconnected the 2 training lines, also the various coolant hoses, and my method for that was to I have this fluid extractor here. Pretty lucky to have this thing, but this thing comes in handy. But basically what I did was I used the fluid extractor to suck it out of each individual hose. And I stick the hose way down inside of each individual hose, and basically if you continue to suck, you will suck the coolant down to that level. So if you take this hose and you force the other hose all the way through here, it'll suck the coolant down basically to this level, which you know, if you keep letting it come down to here, you'll take it out to here, and then when you pull this hose off, not that much comes out. Some comes out, but it's not like gushing for an hour and filling up multiple drain pans. And I got them positioned pretty well, and I really caught most of it. So all we have is just a little bit down here in this drain pan, and this full thing here, and I have plenty of coolant that I brought home, so I should be all set. So basically got all that stuff off, everything out of the way. Right now I'm going to pull off the main belt here, and then we can go ahead and start working on pulling off the water pump, and probably take off the AC belt as well once the water pump's off. There's just a little tensioner down there, and that should be pretty easy after we take the main belt off. And then yeah, we'll just keep picking away at this stuff, and I'll keep checking in with you guys. But you know, we're getting there. We're almost there. So guys, everything's looking pretty good. Let me turn down the brightness on the light here. Everything's looking pretty good. I got the balancer pulled off with the crank pulley puller, and you need one of those. That's the only real way to get it off. To put it on, there's a bunch of ways you can heat up the balancer and just slide it on and then ram the bolt home. But there is also an installer tool with a long bolt that allows you to install it, which aligns it and everything. So I'll show you guys that because I actually have that, borrowed it. But otherwise, yeah, that's pretty much it. We got to take this front cover off, which is going to involve all the front bolts. But I think I'm going to also remove all the garbage from the motor just to clean it up a little bit. You know how I like to make things look nice. So I'll probably just hit it with a little brake clean and then go in there, wire brush it, and brake clean it off again just to get all the grime out. And then I'll go ahead and take the cover off, and we'll get inside of there. And so we got to take this cam gear here, and we got to pull these three 10 mils out. But first, we have to make sure that we're lined up and timed correctly. So what you want to do is check your dots. So you can see the dot on the cam gear, and it's probably hard for you guys to see the dot, but there is an additional dot down on the crank pulley, and you have to line up those teeth. So hopefully you can see it decent, but you got to line it up before you take it apart is nice, and that way when you put it back together, you are lining it up again, and you know the crank pulley has not moved because you're not going to turn it, and you obviously put your bolt in here and turn your 24 mil to spin the crank over. And yeah, that's pretty much it here. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull these three bolts off, pull this off, let the chain fall down, which this chain is pretty sloppy, mind you. Maybe I should have got a chain. I didn't know how sloppy it would be, but it's definitely got a lot of slop. But it is what it is. They say it's fine. They say that it's totally normal to have this amount of slop. Everybody I see doesn't change the chain. You definitely can, but also, why do it if you don't need to? The motor runs fine, so hopefully we don't snap any chains, because then I'll be a little upset if we bend valves. But it is what it is. We'll live and learn, I guess. I'm going to try to not change it. So now we have that off. We're down to the cam plate. We got to pull these four 10s off, and that'll take the cam plate off. I did get a new one of these because I don't know if the O-ring's going to be squished, freaking squished. That's what I'm trying to say. And they could be squished, it could not be. It might be fine to reuse, but if that thing's squished, you're going to have low oil pressure. So I don't really want to have that problem, and rather, not risk low oil pressure after doing this job. I want it to last at least a little while. If the chain breaks, it'll be in a while. But if I have low oil pressure, it'll be right away. I'll have to take it all back apart again. Don't want that. So I'm going to go ahead and slap that on when I go ahead and throw it back together. But I'm going to pull that cam plate off. So I just about got the driver's side valve cover off, and I'm just going to pull the 4/8 on it, and it should pop right off. I got everything off. Basically my tactic was to just bungee everything out of the way. It is pulling on it, but it should not be too bad. It's pulling on the thick wires, and I got it all just bungeed on the cowl and on the wiper arm and just out of the way here, so I can do what I need to do in here with the valve spring tool and all that stuff. So should make my job much easier with all this stuff pulled out of the way. And I'll probably do a similar thing on that side, but there's really not much in the way over there, just the lines for the coolant, for the heater core on the inside. So I'm going to pull this side off, and I may call it quits for the night, but almost there. Good to know that making good progress, and we'll be there soon. I do need to pull that steering shaft out and dent the header. Now might be a good time to do it, now that I can get in there cleanly. I need to make a nice dent in it because it grinds. It's been better because it has wore down, but it still needs some help. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and pop the valve cover. Loves life. think this is a good time to go over everything that's gone on. So I've pretty much stripped this thing down. Like I said, I wanted to do a little bit of a cleaning. I could have just left the valve covers. The valve covers, I don't think they were even leaking. I think there's just grime on these guys just from years of, just existing in there with just the elements and all the oil and everything that's just, in the air. I feel like there's like this kind of grime just develops on there when you have like oil seeping from some areas or dripping on the exhaust, and it vaporizes and ends up everywhere, and just grime, 200,000 miles of grime. So we got to blow all this off, and I'm probably just going to go through and hit this with a wire brush, and then I'll pressure wash everything. But I did take the seal off of that one, and I will off of this one too. I got new seals, Velcro stuff. I don't know that I needed it. Like I said, it doesn't look like this gasket was compromised, and these are reusable, so you don't necessarily need to change them. But I decided that I would like to, so I'm going to do that, and I'm going to scrub them. If I got a little oven cleaner, I'll try to use that to get the stuff off of the inside, but we'll just pressure wash them. And I got the all the coils pulled off there. That's the coil bracket here for all these guys, and I have the coils pulled off. I'd like to clean these guys too. I might just get like a nice rag with some brake clean, clean all the coils off, and clean all these off too. Just get everything nicely cleaned up. And you see I got my rocker assemblies here. All you do is just pull all the 8s out, and then just pull the whole rail out all in one assembly and lay it down. That way you don't have to worry about what goes where. And not that it matters, but I did just use these push rods in a cardboard here. I think I've seen people just take them out and put them wherever, but I like to put them back where they came from. They've been wearing with a particular rocker arm, and I figure it's good to keep them there. They do spin and all that, so it's probably not a big deal, but I think it's good to keep them together, especially if some are not that worn. You want to keep them with one that's not that worn, but probably doesn't even matter, to be honest, but it can't hurt to keep them where they were. So I'm going to go ahead and pull all these coils off and just finagle all these clips. Everything's coming apart really nicely despite it being so old. You just got to be careful, take your time, and don't force anything. And yeah, this motor is so clean. I'll show you guys what it looks like in here. But since I got the rockers off, you can see how clean it is. It is just spotless. It's amazing to see what regular oil changes will do, even with a motor with 200,000 miles. Looks brand new inside. There's no sludge. There's no buildup. It's insanely clean. So after I get this all cleaned out, not cleaned out, but I don't have to do anything. But once I get all the springs changed over, which I plan to use the TDC method, where you make sure the piston's at TDC. But to do that, I need to have the chain on the camshaft and the cam in time and everything like that, so I can spin the motor over without the chain getting all bound up down there. So realistically, I think I'm going to wait until I have it all put back together to do the valve springs. I was going to do them beforehand, but I'm going to focus on cleaning now and get everything all cleaned up and put back together nice and nice. But this motor looks really healthy. The cam spins over really freely. I'll show you guys. I'll show you again later, but it really does spin very nicely in here. Just gotta be careful not to yank it out or anything. But yeah, it's got a lot of free flow to it. I can spin it with one finger if I wanted to, but it's really nice. So I think this thing's super healthy, and we're gonna have not too much problems trying to swap this guy out. It's gonna be good. Anyway, we're gonna get everything cleaned, and we'll come back to this and hopefully have some more progress. So what we have here is one that I've cleaned. The only real way I cleaned it, these are both clogged, my sprayers, but I dumped the brake clean out of here onto a rag, and I've just been kind of aggressively scrubbing it, scraping in the grooves with a screwdriver just to get the brunt of it onto these rags, and then I'm gonna dispose of these. These rags will get cleaned, and they definitely have separators at that facility for all the oil that's in the rags wherever these get cleaned. And as opposed to doing this all in my driveway, I don't want this all in the local sewers. So I'm gonna just scrape all this stuff off on this one like I did with this one, and this one's looking pretty clean, and I think this one's ready for a pressure wash. And I'll do the same thing with this guy here. This plate is kind of dirty, and I'll get that ready for a pressure wash. And this guy, I think I'm just gonna hit straight up because he's not too bad. I already kind of wiped a lot of that off, but it does look like the crank seal may have been leaking. It's pretty wet around there. At least it was definitely damp, so we'll clean all that up, and then we'll have a nice fresh looking timing cover on this thing. So I'm pretty excited. The motor's gonna look really clean. I like freshly redone looking clean stuff, so it's gonna make me happy to see. But I'm going crazy, like cleaning all the coils. There's grime on all the coils. I wiped them all down with rags and clean all the tops of them. You can see they all have their original looking tops. Everything's gonna be nice and clean, and that'll make me happy. So I'm gonna keep plugging away here, cleaning all my garbage and making it look nice, and then we'll put it all back together. So guys, we come to the trick, which I'm sure a lot of you have seen. What we have here is 2 water pump bolts, and we have these 2 dowels here. These are 5/16 inch dowels, and these guys are stuck into the 2 holes where the cam plate normally covers up, and those are the oiling holes, I believe. And those guys, if you stick these 2 dowels in there, you can actually wedge the lifters up into the trays, make sure that they don't fall down onto your cam stop without removing the heads. So this is a trick that plenty of people have done. I've seen it done many a times. I hope that it does work for me as it works for other people. I'm sure that it will, and after we do this, we'll be able to start doing the reassembly. I'll put the chain back on, and I'll go ahead and start doing the springs, and then we can clean off the whole front cover, get ready to reseal the front cover, and all that good stuff too. So got to just do the next step in the process here, which is to swap the cam. So what I have here is the new sloppy stage 2 cam that's going in this thing, and this is all cleaned up. I got it all brake cleaned off. So I'm just going to take some of this engine oil supplement. It's like assembly lube, but AC Delco, GM's version, which I have readily available to me. And I'm going to just douse it and rub it around. And you know, it shouldn't really matter too much. This is a running motor. We're just putting a cam in. You really shouldn't have to do too much crazy cam break-in and stuff like that. All the bearings are already broken in. So this thing should just go right in afterwards. Excuse me. So I'm going to just put a couple water pump bolts in here, and then we can get this guy ready to go in. I'm going to oil him up, and then as soon as this one comes out, we'll throw the new one in, just so we don't risk a lifter falling down, because that would be not fun. So sorry for the blinding light, but the last clip you guys saw was me torquing, or actually no, I didn't show the torquing procedure. I'll explain that in a sec. But basically the last video you guys saw of me was pulling the cam out and sliding the new one in. So I hit it with the EOS, slammed it right in. You have to take the water pump bolts out of it so it doesn't hit your condenser up front. And then you start putting it in. You can thread the bolts back in, and you make sure right before you turn it. You saw my technique there. I didn't really talk because I was trying to focus, but you really just want to turn the cam like this. Make sure all the lifters are in the trays. Shoot your rods in, and after you've done that, you're all set to pull the cam out. Put the new one in and line it up. And make sure that you get your timing all set up when you put your cam gear on, and mine is lined up nice and perfectly. So right now I've moved on to valve springs. I did torque the cam plate. The old cam plate was worn out. I don't think I mentioned it or showed it, but I bought a new one on a hunch that it would be worn out, and it was. It is pretty much, if you can see, it's pretty much flat. There is no O-ring left to this thing, so I bought a new one, and I torqued that one down, and the torque spec on that was, I think, 18 foot-pounds. So that's on there and torqued, and I went ahead and torqued the cam sprocket here to pretty high. It seemed a bit high at the time, and it was very tight, but here's my flashlight. They wanted it at 28 foot-pounds, which seems like an awful lot, but I did it, and it didn't snap or anything like that, so we should be good. Like I said, the chain's a little sloppy, but should be fine. I don't think it's even that bad. So what I would like to do is mark the crank, and I'm going to show you guys the TDC method for changing out the valve springs, which has been done before, but I like it because there's not really room for failure. You can't really mess it up as long as you put the crank at the right spot. So right now I have the crank set up at TDC, where cylinders 1 and 6 are at top dead center. So I've already gone ahead and changed the valve springs on cylinder 1. You can see these first 2 springs here have been changed. They look a little bit different. I'll show you. This is, let me get one of the stock ones. So this is a stock spring on the left and an aftermarket pack 600 thousandths lift rated spring on the right. It's a bigger spring. It's definitely beefier. Looks like probably even a different material just because of the thickness. It's a little thinner and they are stronger. So that is the way that this is going to work. We got to go through and do all of these. I have this dinky little tool here that you clamp on, and it pushes down, and basically just, it's like a strut compressor, a coil spring compressor to get your struts out, but it's kind of jacked up and old and doesn't really work that good. And I wish I bought a nice tool because it's a little bit painful to use this, but it is getting the job done. I've been able to do 2 so far, so I'm just kind of going to go in order here, in the firing order. So I know that this thing is going to do cylinders 1 and 6 in the firing order, so I'll go ahead and cut over to number 6 over here, and you guys can watch and see how I struggle doing cylinder 6. But yeah, that's these 2 back guys. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I already whacked them with a mallet because you want to try to free up the keepers, because the keepers tend to stick, and so when you compress it, it's always better if you unstick the keepers. So just hit it with like a dead blow or something like that, and it should give you, it should break it free. There are better tools for this, but this is just what I have. So I feel like I continually end these videos with, the future videos and giving you guys a sneak peek. But this is an exciting one. A lot of this stuff is coming together. I've got the intercooler mounted on the bottom. I'm going to make a top mount here. I've got the whole front clip off. Piping's pretty much ran how it's going to go. Just need a few couplers and V-bands I'm waiting on, and some miscellaneous parts. But the manifold's created. That's the next video that you guys will see. I won't show you too much of that, but this is what we got in store. Definitely sitting pretty high, and this turbo is going to be sweet. Obviously I got to clock this down. I'm just got it out of my way. I got the drain line run, feed line. That's going to be another video that you guys see. But yeah, this is all coming together quite nicely. Sorry I didn't show the rest of the cam swap. I just had dead GoPro batteries, and I was really trying to get the job done so I could get it tuned and get it driving. And I drove it for a week or 2 with the cam, and then I decided I didn't want to kill the stock cats, so I decided to take it all apart for the turbo build, and now here we are. So this has taken a while, but I just wanted to end off that last video. Sorry you guys didn't get the cam chop noises that you wanted to. I didn't have too many clips of it, just a few on my phone, but yeah, unfortunately we'll have to wait until this thing gets put back together to get some clips, but hopefully that'll keep you guys on the hook, and you guys will continue to watch. So subscribe if you're not, and you get to see this thing run. It ran pretty good. I had like, right before I took it apart, I had it on like the super chop tune. Honestly, it was too much. The whole truck was shaking like crazy, and it's not too bad though. I got it to where it doesn't pull through the converter at idle, so I can actually, you know, hold it at idle. The vacuum's a little low at idle. The brakes are iffy most of the time. If it's like high idle, it's okay, but if it idles down really low, so I gotta figure out a good way to keep it to running good. The vacuum pump engages and it sounds really weird, and the pedal feels like an ABS stop. So I gotta work out some bugs. Obviously, this is my first time doing an LS and the tune and all that, but it is going quite well. So I think I'm like 2 weeks into this little turbo build here, and we've made some good progress. So I'm gonna keep picking away at this thing, and you guys will see the progress on this Max Speeding Rods turbo, and we'll see what this thing can do. We're gonna make this thing spool. I don't know if it's gonna be you know, super quick to light. I hope so. I don't think it's a huge turbo for this setup. It does have a big exhaust wheel, but hopefully that leads to minimal back pressure, and this thing spools up quick. I don't know. We're gonna find out what it do and what the truck's gonna do. So stay tuned, and we will get it all worked out. Thanks for watching, guys, and hopefully you enjoyed this little cam swap video.